p.m. We are called to order. City Attorney, your report?
Yes, there's no announcement of the prior meetings closed session.
Thank you. Roll call.
Councilmember McLean. Here. Councilmember Ferry.
Here.
Mayor Kelvin.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem West. Here. Councilmember Boydston.
Here.
Thank you.
Public participation. Thank you. We have one speaker card. May I call Cam Notmeyer forward?
Cam Notmeyer speaking for myself. I would just like to point out that it's very interesting that we have had all of these special meetings called by all of the major council, school district, Castaic Lake Water Agency, all right before Christmas. It's very interesting that these major decisions are being made with special called meetings with one-day notice. And I find that extremely disturbing for our area, that this is the way that our elected officials are functioning. This is just from the 2 meetings of the Castaic Lake Water Agency. And I assume that you are well aware of what is going on there. This is a special meeting by the William S. Hart School District, again dealing with developers. And now we have the special meeting, thanks to, I believe, to Tim Ben, or maybe we wouldn't even be aware of this, and it would probably have been done like in the past, where you sign that little waiver, waive the public hearing, and quietly raise our rates to pay the fine. So it'll be interesting to see if you have any inclination to actually represent the ratepayers of this community. I haven't seen that from the city council members that have been part of the sanitation district since 2004, when that limit came into effect. In fact, it was business as usual. Approve every development that came in before you. The county did the same thing. And now we're looking at monumental expenses again. But so at least I thank Tim Ben Boydston, Councilman Tim Ben Boydston, for at least requiring that there be some kind of hearing in this community, even though you did it under this special meeting when it could have been on a regular meeting, fully noticed properly, and maybe the community would really know what's going on, and not just a few maybe elected officials and lobbyists, etc. But hopefully we'll see a change.
Thank you, City Attorney, or excuse me, City Manager.
Excuse me, I put in a speaker's card. This is public parking. Oh, I put it under agenda item 1.
Yeah, no, there's this.
I'm missing something here. What was that?
I put a card in so that I could speak.
Did you want to speak?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
but we're not there yet.
You want to
Okay.
speak on the item?
Yes, I wanted.
On the public participation portion?
No, I wanted to speak on the item. I'm sorry. It's been a long.
You'll have a chance.
Thank you.
Just briefly, thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. In response to the special meeting, I think that was addressed in terms of the amount of time that was given to respond to the potential protest letter that the council will consider tonight. A special meeting was called to address that issue just because of the timing issue and what it needed to be done. As a matter of course, the City of Santa Clarita rarely holds special meetings. I believe this is probably, today's 2 examples are maybe the only examples we have of all year long. But on the issue of the chloride, the Sanitation District is here tonight to address what has been done over time, and I think through that presentation many of those questions will be answered, but that concludes my comments.
Thank you very much. And as you know, our item this evening is a report from the Santa Clarita Valley Sanitation District Staff regarding the administrative civil liability complaint from the LA County Regional Water Quality Control Board and possible written response by the City of Santa Clarita. Mr. Newman, are you going to give a report, sir?
Yeah, real quickly. Mayor and Council, Robert Newman, City's Public Works Director. The item before you, as has been mentioned, was a request of Councilmember Boydson at the last meeting, council meeting in December of 8th. We've set this up as a special meeting because comments from interested parties, which the city could submit a letter by, are due December 26th. So there really is not much time left before a deadline to submit a letter. It's very clear that this chloride issue is a complex issue. We continue to get questions. We've worked very closely with the Santa Clarita Valley Sanitation District or the Sanitation District of Los Angeles County. They've got a good website with all the information that dates back to the early 80s when this discussion came up and when the regional board set the original limits. So they have a website, and as I introduced Phil Freeze, he'll talk about that. From a city staff perspective, there's not a do-nothing option. They're currently in an environmental study and a facilities plan, which is the subject of this civil liabilities claim that will be discussed tonight. But there's clearly not a do-nothing option. So the recommendation tonight is to hear a presentation from Phil Freeze and then consider whether the city wants to submit a letter as an interested party to the regional board as part of the recent letter. So with that, I'll introduce Phil Freeze, who's a department head with the Santa Clarita Valley Sanitation District. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Newman, Council? No. Mr. Freeze?
Thank you, Robert. Mayor Keller, council members, my name is Phil Freeze. I'm a department head with the Santa Clarita Valley Sanitation District, and it's my pleasure to have the opportunity this afternoon to make a presentation to the council on the chloride or salt limit issues facing the sanitation district at this time. In my presentation, I'll try to cover the requirements that the sanitation district must meet, the goals of the sanitation district, a brief recitation of the chronology of events that have brought the sanitation district to the place that we are today, and I will review the administrative civil liability complaint recently issued to the sanitation district by the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board and the options available to the sanitation district in responding to the complaint, and finish with a summary statement and next steps. Got the next slide, please. So first of all, the chloride or salt limits are legal requirements which derive from state and federal laws that are implemented by the State Water Resources Control Board's local entity, the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board, in permits issued by the regional board. And the state and federal laws are the Porter-Cologne Water Quality Control Act, that's the state law, and the Federal Clean Water Act. Those are parallel statutes, and they both require that the state look at the waters of the state and designate what are the beneficial uses of those waters, uses like municipal and domestic water supply, agricultural water supply, water contact recreation, warm water habitat, groundwater recharge, beneficial uses like that. And once you designate the beneficial uses that the water is supposed to serve, you then set water quality objectives that allow the water to serve those beneficial uses. You then have to do monitoring to determine whether the water is achieving those water quality objectives, and if you determine that the water is not achieving the water quality objectives and it is impaired or has lower quality than that of the established objective, then take action to bring the water into attainment with the objective. So what we have here in the valley is the reaches of the Santa Clara River into which our sewage treatment plants discharge. The state has set a chloride or salt standard of 100 milligrams per liter to protect the agricultural water supply use. The water quality is not in compliance with that 100 milligram per liter standard. And so the water's been declared to be not in attainment with the standard, and actions are being taken to bring the water into attainment through permit limits being imposed upon us. So our goals, the goals of the sanitation district, have always been to implement the smallest and least costly possible compliance project to protect the ratepayers of the sanitation district from fines, from unreasonable fines, and to prevent the potential loss of local control. So those have been our goals throughout the process. Next slide, please. So there's a very long history to the chloride issue for Santa Clarita Valley. It was back in 1978, pursuant to the requirements of Port of Cologne and the Clean Water Act, that the regional board set the 100 milligram per liter chloride or salt standard for the river. In 1989, the regional board put the 100 milligram per liter limit into our permits for our sewage treatment plants. We told them that at that time we were discharging about 175 milligrams per liter. We told the regional board we couldn't meet that 100 milligram per liter limit, and other dischargers in other watersheds that got new mineral limits at the same time through the same type of process also informed the regional board they couldn't meet their limits either. And the regional board incorporated or adopted a drought policy to protect dischargers from having to meet mineral limits that they couldn't meet, which recognized the mineral levels in the water supply, which fluctuated and went up to high levels during droughts to protect the dischargers during the drought period. So during the period 1990 to 1997, the sanitation district was protected from having to meet the 100 milligram per liter limit by the drought policy. In 1997, the drought policy expired. We did get a new interim limit to continue to protect us from violating the 100 milligram per liter limit. We got a 190 milligram per liter limit that stayed in place through 2001. But at that time, the regional board started a study to determine, could we change the standard for the river to some other number and still protect all the designated beneficial uses? Could we find a standard that the discharger, that the sanitation district could comply with and still protect all the beneficial uses? And we advocated for a number of 143 milligrams per liter, and we had indication for some period of time that the regional board might adopt a 143 milligram per liter limit. And had they adopted that limit, which we felt would have protected the crops, we felt we could meet that limit with water softener removals only, as long as we got some accommodation during drought period. So during this 1997 through 2000 time period, we were getting positive indications. They were doing studies. It was looking like 143 would protect crops. We felt like the regional board might adopt 143, and we might be all right without extreme expense, that we would have a limit we could meet. But things turned pretty sour in 1998. The river was listed as being impaired for chloride because it wasn't meeting the 100 milligram per liter standard. We thought that was unfair because we were talking about a change to 143 at that time. So why are we getting an impairment listing for not meeting 100? So we actually got the listing removed by the State Water Board, but the EPA put the listing back in place. And we filed a notice of intent to sue the EPA over this listing issue. So by that time, by 1998, 99, it really began to be a long, protracted fight. And we filed a notice of intent to sue the EPA, but by the end of 2000, it became clear that the regional board was not going to change the limit from 100 to 143. They cited the concerns of a downstream avocado farmer and a trend of rising chloride levels at the county line, and in December of 2000 refused to raise the chloride limit from 100 to 143. It stayed at 100. And so we knew at that point we had a listing for impairment due to chloride. The limit was staying at 100. We weren't going to be able to meet that limit. We were going to be in a long fight at that point. In 2002, the regional board adopted the chloride TMDL, that stands for total maximum daily load. That's a regulatory order that sets a time frame to come into compliance with the limit. At that time, we were discharging at about 175 milligrams per liter, and we would peak out at a discharge of over 200 milligrams per liter in 2003. Over 50 milligrams per liter of that was due to water softeners, dumping salt into the wastewater coming into the sewage treatment plant. And with a discharge of 200 milligrams per liter, we knew that compliance with that 100 milligram per liter standard would require large-scale advanced treatment facilities with brine disposal proposed at that time to be through a 43-mile pipeline through Ventura County to the ocean, with cost estimates up to $500 million. And the sanitation district was determined to fight with all our resources to avoid that outcome. Next slide, please. So in the 2003 to 2008 time period, the district with the city at its side waged a hard and determined fight with the regional board for the majority of the time period through 2007. We challenged the TMDL on multiple legal and technical grounds. And just an example of the kind of comment letters we sent to the regional board in those days. This is a cover letter in 2 of 25 attachments. It's a 41-page legal attachment prepared in part by our special counsel's firm, and 51 pages of technical arguments, and then another 23 attachments. The total length of the comment letter was 2,710 pages. So, I mean, I just say that to try to indicate that we were waging the hardest fight that we could possibly wage to push back against this standard, this TMDL. We petitioned our discharge permits because they had interim limits that we didn't feel we could comfortably meet. We worked to modify the TMDL to lengthen the implementation schedule to give us time to conduct scientific studies to try to develop a justification to change the chloride standard to something more lenient that would be less costly to comply with. We worked side by side with the city to adopt 2 water softener ordinances, one to prevent the installation of any more water softeners after 2003, and the other, which was adopted in 2008, to take out existing water softeners. And those were groundbreaking ordinances that had never, similar ordinances had not been adopted by other communities. They dramatically reduced the ultimate cost of compliance, removed over 50 milligrams per liter from our discharge. Early in this time period, in the 2003 time period, we threatened to sue the State Water Board over the unreasonable conditions in our discharge permits in the TMDL, but ultimately, rather than pursuing the litigation, we entered into an alternative dispute resolution process and signed a settlement agreement that extended the TMDL's time frame so we could do these special studies in hopes of getting a more reasonable standard. We were able to get reasonable interim standards in our permits, interim limits in our permits. The results of this process, in the end, this extended difficult process where we got conditional site-specific objectives that permitted a prescriptive alternative compliance project, which was called the Alternative Water Resources Management Compliance Project. It was a $250 million watershed-based compliance project, half the cost of the previously proposed compliance approach. That was the best we could do. It wasn't the outcome we hoped for, it was what we fought for, it was what we achieved as of 2008. So we do feel that we vigorously challenged the regional board on all available grounds from 1998 through 2007 before making a business decision in 2008 to try to move forward with a compliance project that we thought was in the best interests of the district. So in 2009 and 2010, we attempted to gain public support for the alternative compliance project. We did not gain sufficient public support for the compliance project to see rate ordinances passed for that compliance project. In 2011, we submitted a facilities plan for a revised alternative compliance project, which was basically the alternative water resources management approach without the advanced treatment component, trying to take advantage of improved water quality conditions, and the regional board responded with notices of violation. At that point, our board of directors gave us direction to begin a planning effort for a compliance project to comply with a 100 milligram per liter limit, which we commenced. Next slide, please. And so in 2012, we issued a notice of preparation for the environmental impact report for our 100 milligram per liter compliance project. We got a number of very detailed comments from the public and from interested agencies, which extended the scope of our analysis to add a new alternative and extended the schedule for our planning process. We had previously represented to the regional board that we felt we could complete our planning process by December of 2012. The comments that extended the scope of our analysis extended our schedule into 2013, also included a new approach other than the 100 milligram per liter end of pipe compliance approach. The regional board responded with the administrative civil liability complaint. Next slide, please. And so the ACL complaint was issued. The stated reason was due to our continuing lateness in submitting an adequate facilities plan and environmental impact report that was due a year and a half ago, May 4th of 2011. The proposed amount of the complaint is a little over $280,000. We have various options on how to respond to the complaint. We could simply waive our right to a hearing and pay the fine. We could actively contest the fine, or we could pursue the settlement. We could enter into settlement discussions with the regional board. And following this city council meeting, we will seek direction from our board of directors as to how to respond to this administrative civil liability complaint. Next slide, please. So, in closing, Robert said accurately, I couldn't agree more, that no action, no response isn't an option. failure to comply with the state's mandates, the state's chloride limits, will result in multi-million-dollar fines. This $280,000 fine is an indication that the regional board is not satisfied with our progress or trajectory, and they're trying to get movement in a satisfactory direction from us. But if we don't comply ultimately with the mandate, we face ruinous fines and potential loss of local control, as has happened in the city of Los Osos. We must implement a compliance project. And again, we're currently engaged in a planning process to examine our alternatives to comply, and we will be releasing a draft facilities plan and EIR this spring. What I would say is, as far as any good news that I could leave you with, is that we have had improved water quality conditions since the 2008 time period when we proposed the Alternative Water Resources Management Plan compliance project. Whatever compliance project we implement will be cheaper than the $250 million AWRM project that was proposed in 2009. However, it's still going to be an expensive project with significant rate impacts. So that's all I had for prepared comments, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Freeze. Council, questions?
I have a lot of questions and a lot to say, but I wanted to know whether we were going to hear public comment first.
We can certainly do that. I wanted to solicit for Mr. Freeze, was there any further report, perhaps by legal or in furtherance? Robert Newman, same to you. Is there anything more we need to bring to the table? Thank you, Mr. Freeze, and we'll move over to public participation. We have 4 speaker cards. We will begin with Cam Notmeyer, be followed by Alan Cameron, and to be followed by Glo Donnelly.
Kevin Altamira speaking for myself. That was an interesting presentation. Not once did I hear, or have I ever heard from the county, the city, sanitation board, regional water quality board, anything that, gee, you have a problem, let's stop developing so much and maybe we won't have a problem. Especially since, from my understanding, the majority of your salt is coming from your imported water from Castaic Lake Water Agency. The majority of it. So how are you ever going to solve this by what we're talking about? If they aren't required to do something at that end. I don't know if that Bay Delta thing that is maybe years and years down the road. This appears to be one solution that is suddenly demanded after all these years. He said back in 1978, I looked at the 29 pages that you put on attached to this meeting, and they started out at what I said earlier, 2004. Now we've had 3 of you sitting up there, 4 of you actually, through all of this time, through all of it. And all I saw, and even up to the One Valley, One Vision, is approve everything. Water's okay, sewer's okay, no problems. Full steam's ahead. Give them every exemption you can find. That's what's going on now. When you adopted One Valley, One Vision, you had 40,000 between you and the county that hadn't been built. And you're still approving, splitting lots, doing everything you can to increase the density. Now, it's hard to be sympathetic when also, you know, the sanitation district through all those years when supposedly had a 7-year drought, they just kept borrowing from one fund to another, making the ratepayers pay it back with interest. All of that's sitting there, and nobody here, even though we have the majority of the sanitation district board, sitting right on our city council. And I've been here for 25 years since the city formed, and I never saw them call a meeting here maybe once in those 25 years.
Thank you. Alan Ferdman, Alan Cameron, Bill Donnelly, and then Lynn Planbeck.
Thank you, Mayor Keller.
Yes, sir.
I have some really good news regarding this issue. Most of you know I've worked in the development industry for more than 31 years. May I suggest an amended new goal to the list of goals that you saw, because it is the way out of this morass. The new goal should be request a new administrative appeal process to be allocated by the Regional Water Quality Control Board for the purposes of reforming the chloride limits based on new science, adequate science, and collaborative science, using the studies that have been done already only as a foundation, because the studies that have been done already are woefully short of defining this issue correctly. In the 400 to 500 hours that I spent analyzing this issue this far, several things have emerged. One, by the way, is that the problem is not, quote, the State Water Project. There's an equal quantity of chloride in our native, naturally occurring groundwater that is above this 100 milliliter standard. You will notice that the identified problem began in 1978. There were no complaints of any of the agricultural users at that time. As part of my investigation of this, I had a very cordial 25-minute conversation with Samuel Unger. Many of you may know that he is the Ken Striplin of the Los Angeles Ventura Regional Water Quality Control Board, the man who administrates that organization that is the essential author of our discontent. A very reasonable, very collaborative, courteous individual who clearly indicated he had no desire to impose these extraordinary and irrational standards on the Santa Clarita Valley. When I say they're irrational, I can prove that, and I'll just give you a taste of that. In Ventura County, where supposed beneficial users have been harmed, the Los Angeles Ventura Regional Water Quality Control Board has authorized chloride levels from dischargers exactly like us of 150 to 400 milliliters of chloride, or chloride parts per liter. I'll repeat that standard because it bears consideration about where we really stand relative to this. Between 150 and 400, approved by this same local water agency, right in the areas where some agricultural interests assert they have damage. So I began to question this, by the way, when I had CPAs analyze this for me. The true cost of the study that's on the table now, according to CPAs, is $1.34 billion, the majority of which will not be paid by homeowners or developers, but by our businesses.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. Bill Donnelly?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I apologize for my lack of knowledge that we had public participation. So I'm standing here on number one, which is what I thought I was going to do. Very interesting to listen to what Alan had to say. And I think that we have been involved in this for so many years that it's refreshing to hear that maybe there's something new on the table. One never knows. The thing that I was coming here to assure you tonight was that I would be on the playing field with you if you sent a letter that was very not only cordial, but looking to compromise, make some reason for them to want to come on the table, to the table with us, and maybe come down to the 115 to 120 range. I don't know that it is so dramatically different for the growers between 100 and 117. I just don't see it, and I think in some ways they don't see it. So I don't know whether this letter that we received and the fine was a shot over the bow, saying let's get back to maybe serious negotiations. But I think not a lot gets done between the end of December and the beginning of January. It's a shame that we had to have a meeting on the 26th, or for the 26th on the 20th. Anyhow, just know that I'm there. I've been there with you guys. We've all been working on it. The realtors have been doing their best to remove every sailing softwater, thing that we could find. Every time we'd find one, we'd make a call. And the city was very proactive about dealing with the owners to get rid of them. So anyhow, good luck with the letter. And again, my suggestion is let's see if we can't get back on the table and get this negotiated. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Tim?